Most people are weak, not because they lack talent or opportunities, but because they lack the ruthlessness to cut away what destroys them. In a world that preys on the soft, Machiavelli shows us how to harden into the strongest version of ourselves. In a world where weakness is celebrated and false kindness is mistaken for virtue, you remain vulnerable. You give too much, forgive too often, and hope that morality alone will protect you. But as Machiavelli warns, those who cling to goodness alone will be destroyed by those who are not. Today, I will reveal 7 ruthless rules for becoming the strongest version of yourself, drawn from the mind of Machiavelli himself. If you have the courage to listen, these rules will harden your spirit and sharpen your power. Most people live under a dangerous illusion that being good, kind, and agreeable will guarantee them protection and respect in this world. They believe that if they sacrifice their own desires, if they place others before themselves, if they forgive endlessly, then somehow life will reward them. But the reality is far darker. Kindness without boundaries is weakness, and in a world filled with predators, weakness is blood in the water. The masses who cling to goodness as their only weapon discover, too late, that their mercy has made them vulnerable to betrayal. And betrayal does not come from strangers. It comes from those they trusted, those they helped, those they loved. Machiavelli understood this truth clearly. He wrote that men are ungrateful, fickle, liars, and deceivers. They love you when it benefits them, but the moment it no longer serves their interest, they abandon you without hesitation. What does this mean for you? It means if you wish to become the strongest version of yourself, you must abandon the childish fantasy that kindness alone will carry you to power. A ruler who is only loved is not secure. A man who is only kind is not respected. The strong, the feared, the ones who command true authority, they are ruthless when they must be. Imagine a man who spends his life giving everything away, always bending to the demands of others. His friends call him generous. His colleagues call him dependable. His family calls him selfless. Yet beneath these compliments hides a bitter truth: they respect him less each day. They take him for granted. They exploit him. And when the moment comes to choose between him and their own survival, they will discard him without remorse. Why? Because he has taught them he will always be kind, no matter how they treat him. He has given them permission to see his goodness as weakness. Now imagine another man. He is not cruel for the sake of cruelty, nor does he indulge in pointless malice. But when he is crossed, he responds without hesitation. When someone disrespects him, he ensures they regret it. When someone tries to take advantage of his generosity, he withdraws it instantly and replaces it with a lesson. This man may not be loved as warmly, but he is respected deeply. No one dares to underestimate him. Even his enemies tread carefully, because they know he will not hesitate to strike back. That is the power of ruthlessness. It is not about destroying others for pleasure. It is about refusing to be destroyed by them. Ruthlessness is the ability to make decisions others are too afraid to make. It is the willingness to sacrifice temporary affection in exchange for lasting respect. It is understanding that to lead, to rise, to protect what is yours, you must be willing to embrace the hard edge of strength. History is filled with examples of rulers who lost everything because they clung to kindness when they should have been ruthless. Leaders who forgave betrayal instead of punishing it. Men who spared enemies only to be overthrown by them later. Their downfall was not caused by their intelligence or ability. It was caused by their refusal to be feared. Think about your own life. How many times have you allowed others to cross your boundaries because you didn't want to seem harsh? How many times have you kept quiet when someone disrespected you, believing that silence was the noble choice? How many times have you given and given, while others only took? Each time you chose kindness over ruthlessness, you trained the world to see you as weak, and weakness never commands respect. To be ruthless does not mean to abandon humanity. It does not mean to become a villain in the shadows. It means to stop tolerating disrespect, to stop excusing betrayal, to stop sacrificing your strength for people who do not value it. It means standing firm when others expect you to yield. It means protecting yourself with an iron hand, even if it offends those who wish to exploit you. Machiavelli wrote that it is safer to be feared than loved. If one cannot be both, and most of the time you cannot be both, you must choose. Those who choose fear, those who embrace the edge of ruthlessness, are never easy targets. Their kindness, when it appears, is valued more because it is rare. Their approval, when granted, carries more weight because it is not given freely, and their power, when felt, cannot be ignored. The world bends to those who wield strength with discipline, not to those who hide behind fragile ideals of endless kindness. Power is not merely what you do, it is what others believe you do. In every society, in every circle, perception is more important than truth. A man may act with cunning brilliance in secret, but if he cannot control how the world sees him, he will be remembered not for his victories, but for his flaws. Machiavelli understood that men judge more by their eyes than by their hands, and so the art of power lies not only in action, but in the careful construction of appearance. Think of it this way: the masses do not have the time, nor the will, to study the truth of every man. They cannot see your intentions, your struggles, or your reasoning. They see only what you allow them to see. And because their vision is limited, you must master the art of presenting yourself in a way that strengthens your authority. Appear noble, even when your heart plots in silence. Appear generous, even when your calculations are cold. Appear merciful, even when your decisions are merciless. The mask is more powerful than the face, because the mask is what the world believes. Imagine a leader who governs with wisdom but appears weak, hesitant, unsure of himself. His actions may be just, his reasoning sound, but his image betrays him. His people do not trust his authority. They doubt his strength. In moments of crisis, they abandon him, not because his decisions were wrong, but because his appearance gave them no confidence. Now imagine another leader, one whose private life may be filled with doubts, fears, and compromises, but who stands before the world with composure, certainty, and strength. His people trust him even when his actions falter, because his image projects power. This is the difference between control and collapse. In your own life, understand that people are not rewarding your true self. They are rewarding the version of you they perceive. If you present yourself as endlessly humble, self-effacing, and timid, then do not be surprised when you are overlooked. If you present yourself as strong, disciplined, and unshakable, others will treat you accordingly, even if beneath the surface you are still learning, still struggling, still building. Control the narrative before others define it for you. Machiavelli reminds us that rulers must learn how not to be good, but to appear good. This is the subtlety of power. You must hold virtues as tools, not as chains. Appear religious if it strengthens your authority, but do not be bound by religion when it weakens your hand. Appear merciful when mercy earns loyalty, but do not hesitate to be ruthless when mercy invites betrayal. Your public image must always lean toward nobility, because men are quick to judge and slow to question. They believe the surface, rarely the depths. The danger comes when men confuse appearance with honesty. Many believe that if they simply act with integrity, the world will naturally see it, but the world does not see. It assumes. It takes fragments of your actions, mixes them with gossip and perception, and builds an image that may not serve you. If you do not shape this image intentionally, others will shape it for you, and often against you. Consider how enemies operate. They do not always strike with swords. They strike with stories. They whisper doubts about your character. They exaggerate your flaws. They plant suspicions in the minds of others. If you have no control over your image, these whispers become your identity. But if you have carefully cultivated an appearance of strength, those same whispers will vanish against the shield of your reputation. People will dismiss lies because they clash with what they have already been conditioned to believe about you. In the pursuit of becoming the strongest version of yourself, you must therefore master both substance and style. Yes, build your discipline, sharpen your mind, and act with strategy. But equally, learn how to project confidence, how to command presence, how to shape the way others interpret your every move. Walk into a room as if you already command it. Speak not with desperation, but with conviction. Even in silence, let your body project authority. Every detail, from how you dress, to how you hold your gaze, to how you carry yourself, is part of the theater of power. Remember this: men would rather follow the illusion of strength than the reality of weakness. They are more easily swayed by the appearance of certainty than by the truth of doubt. If you allow yourself to appear uncertain, hesitant, or fragile, then no matter how capable you are, no one will rally to your side. If you cultivate the appearance of stability, then even in moments of failure, people will trust you to recover. This is why image is more vital than truth. Your private self may wrestle with fear, but your public self must embody resolve. Your mind may calculate with cold precision, but your face must display fairness. Your heart may be ruthless, but your words must carry wisdom. The game is not deception for the sake of vanity. It is the recognition that human beings are ruled by perception, and only those who command perception command power. The path to becoming the strongest version of yourself requires sacrifices that most people are unwilling to make. It demands the ability to cut ties, to walk away, and to detach from attachments that weaken your resolve. The average man lives his life chained to relationships, comforts, and sentiments that serve no purpose except to keep him soft. He tells himself that loyalty means never letting go, that love requires endless compromise, that comfort is a sign of success. But these illusions are what keep him powerless. Machiavelli understood that attachments often weaken rulers. That devotion to fragile bonds can cloud judgment and invite ruin. A prince who ties himself too closely to friends, allies, or even family without considering his own survival will find those same attachments turned against him. Think of the man who refuses to leave behind those who drag him down. He surrounds himself with friends who gossip, waste time, and envy his progress. He convinces himself that keeping them close is a sign of loyalty, that abandoning them would be cruel. Yet every day, their weakness seeps into him. Their doubts infect his ambition. Their laziness slows his pace. Their small-mindedness narrows his vision. He clings to them out of sentiment, but sentiment is poison when it chains you to mediocrity. What he calls loyalty is, in truth, fear. Fear of being alone, fear of outgrowing those around him, fear of walking a harder road. Now imagine another man. He values strength over sentiment. He does not hate his weak companions, but he does not allow them to consume his time or energy. He cuts ties when ties become chains. He steps away from comfort when comfort threatens growth. He is willing to endure solitude if solitude is what makes him sharper. This man will advance further, not because he lacks emotion, but because he refuses to let emotion dominate his choices. His attachments serve him, not enslave him. That is what it means to detach. Machiavelli taught that rulers must always think of survival and strength first. To place affection above power is to invite destruction. A ruler who clings to advisors out of friendship will be betrayed by them when ambition tempts them. A man who remains tied to family loyalty above reason may find himself overthrown by the very people he sought to protect. Weak attachments breed vulnerability, and vulnerability breeds downfall. History has shown it repeatedly. Leaders undone not by their enemies, but by their inability to separate personal feeling from strategic necessity. In your own life, this lesson is no different. How many times have you tolerated relationships that no longer served your growth? How many times have you said yes to obligations that drained your time, your energy, your spirit, simply because you didn't want to disappoint someone? How often have you stayed in places, jobs, or circles that suffocated you, all because you feared being seen as disloyal? These are weak attachments. And every moment you remain bound to them. You trade your strength for the illusion of comfort. Detachment does not mean cruelty. It does not mean abandoning everyone without thought. It means evaluating whether your connections add to your strength or diminish it. It means asking whether the people around you sharpen your ambition or dull it. It means deciding whether your comforts make you stronger or merely pacify you. If they weaken you, then they must be cut away. The strong do not remain chained to weakness for the sake of sentiment. They choose discipline over indulgence, progress over comfort, clarity over attachment. There is also another danger hidden within attachment's dependency. When you depend too heavily on another for validation, security, or identity, you hand them the power to destroy you. If your happiness depends entirely on the approval of others, then your strength is not your own. If your identity depends on relationships, then your power is borrowed. Machiavelli warns that dependency is a weapon others can wield against you, binding you to their will. To detach from weak attachments is to reclaim that weapon and turn it to your advantage. This detachment also applies to the comforts you worship. Wealth, luxury, the familiar routines of life. All of these can soften the edge of your discipline. A man who cannot step away from his pleasures is a man who cannot act decisively when those pleasures are threatened. He becomes a slave to what he owns, rather than a master of himself. The strongest version of you is forged not in indulgence, but in restraint. When you learn to detach from comfort, you discover that you can endure hunger, solitude, and hardship without breaking. That resilience is the foundation of true strength. The truth is that most people will never walk this path because detachment feels cold, even ruthless. They would rather stay surrounded by weakness than endure the loneliness of strength. But greatness is not built in the company of those who drain you. It is built in the silence of separation, in the discipline of sacrifice, in the decision to rise above the attachments that others worship. The world belongs not to those who cling, but to those who let go when letting go is the only path to power. Silence is one of the most underrated weapons of power, and yet it is also one of the deadliest. Most men cannot bear it. They rush to fill the air with words, desperate to explain themselves, to justify themselves, to be heard and validated. They believe that by speaking often, they prove their importance. But the opposite is true. The more a man speaks, the more predictable he becomes, the more vulnerable he makes himself. His words expose his intentions, his fears, his desires. Silence, on the other hand, conceals. Silence forces others to wonder. Silence makes others uneasy because in the absence of words, the mind invents possibilities. Machiavelli understood that silence is not emptiness, it is control. Consider the man who speaks carelessly, who shares every thought that crosses his mind. His words become weapons against him, twisted, misunderstood, or remembered at the wrong moment. He hands his enemies a map of his intentions. He reveals his weaknesses without realizing it. He drowns himself in his own noise. Now consider the man who speaks rarely but with precision. Every word he utters carries weight. People lean in when he chooses to break his silence. They listen because his silence has made his voice rare and rarity is value. His silence is not a void, it is a fortress. In court, in councils, in the gatherings of power, silence separates rulers from the ruled. The ruler listens more than he speaks. He studies every gesture, every tone, every word of others, while revealing little of himself. Those who cannot master silence are blind because they are too busy speaking to see. But the silent man observes. He notices who flatters too much, who hesitates, who contradicts himself. He collects information while giving away none. That is the advantage of silence. It is intelligence disguised as restraint. Look at your own life. How often have you spoken too soon, only to regret it later. How often have you revealed your plans, your emotions, or your weaknesses to people who did not deserve to know them? How many times have you lost respect because your words were too frequent, too loud, too uncontrolled? This is the mistake of those who do not value silence. They think silence is weakness, when in truth, silence is strength. Words can be weapons, but silence is the shield that protects you until the right moment to strike. Machiavelli would tell you that appearances matter more than truth. Silence strengthens appearances because it allows others to project onto you whatever they wish. A silent man becomes mysterious. Some see him as wise, others as dangerous, still others as disciplined. But all agree on one thing: he cannot be ignored. This is the power of silence. It creates intrigue, and intrigue is influence. The more others wonder about you, the more space you occupy in their minds, and the more power you have without lifting a finger. Silence also controls the rhythm of conflict. When insulted, the average man reacts immediately, eager to defend his pride. He lashes out with words, often making himself look foolish. But the man of silence does not rush. He absorbs the insult, he lets it linger, and his lack of reaction unsettles his opponent. The aggressor begins to doubt himself. Did his words strike? Did he reveal too much? The silence becomes louder than any reply. And when the silent man finally responds, his words land with crushing weight. Because they are not drowned in a sea of chatter. They arrive like a blade cutting through air. You must understand that silence is not about saying nothing forever. It is about choosing your words with calculation, about holding your tongue until speech becomes a weapon, not a weakness. A general does not reveal his strategy before the battle. A ruler does not confess his fears before his enemies. A wise man does not reveal his heart to those who cannot guard it. Silence protects your plans, your emotions, your power, until the moment comes to unleash them with precision. Even in daily life, silence has the ability to shift dynamics. In negotiation, the one who speaks less usually wins. His silence pressures the other side to fill the void, often with concessions. In arguments, the one who falls silent controls the energy, forcing the other to exhaust themselves with words that will later sound desperate. In leadership, the one who does not speak often builds respect, because when he does speak, it matters. People fear silence because it cannot be manipulated. That fear gives you an advantage. Those who master silence command presence without effort. Their gaze, their posture, their composure speak louder than endless chatter. Silence is discipline. Silence is self-control. Silence is the refusal to waste power on words that do not serve you. And the man who controls his silence controls his world. Hesitation is the poison of strength. It disguises itself as caution, as thoughtfulness, as patience, but beneath its mask, it is fear. And fear rots a man from the inside until he can no longer act when it matters most. The world does not wait for the hesitant. Opportunities appear suddenly, without warning, and vanish just as quickly. A man who pauses, who doubts, who waits for the perfect moment, finds that moment stolen by someone else who dared to act. Machiavelli understood this. With ruthless clarity, fortune favors the bold, not the timid. The prince who hesitates to strike loses his throne to the one who moves first. Consider the battlefield. A commander sees his enemy faltering. Their lines unsteady, their soldiers wavering. He knows the moment is fragile. If he acts now, he can crush them. But if he hesitates, if he stops to think of every risk, every possibility, every fear, the chance will pass. The enemy will regroup, regain courage, and the window will close. His hesitation has cost him victory. Now picture another commander. He sees the same weakness, and without delay, he orders his men forward. His enemies collapse under the sudden force. Victory is his, not because he had more soldiers, not because he had more weapons, but because he had more resolve. This is the difference between hesitation and decisiveness. The same is true in life. You are faced with chances every day, opportunities to step forward, to take control, to rise above the rest. But how many times have you waited? How many times have you delayed, convincing yourself that you were not ready, that you needed more time, that the stars had not yet aligned? And while you waited, someone else acted. They seized the very opportunity you hesitated over. They reaped the reward you could have had. Hesitation costs more than failure, because failure at least teaches, but hesitation teaches nothing. It leaves you with only regret. Machiavelli wrote that it is better to act and be bold, even at the risk of failure, than to stand idle and let others determine your fate. Fortune, he said, is like a woman. She must be seized with force, not courted with hesitation. She favors those who move with strength, those who take risks, those who dare. And if she punishes them, at least they stood as men of action. But the hesitant, they are punished twice, once by their own fear, and again by the hands of those who were braver. To strike decisively does not mean to act blindly. It does not mean rushing forward without thought. It means that once the decision is made, once the path is clear, you do not delay. You act with full force, without doubt, without hesitation. Indecision kills more dreams than failure ever will. A man who acts boldly, even imperfectly, commands respect because others sense his confidence. But a man who wavers inspires only doubt, because doubt is contagious. If you do not believe in your own strike, no one else will. Think of how hesitation shows itself in small ways. A man who wants to speak but waits too long loses the moment. A man who wishes to defend his honor but hesitates is branded a coward. A man who sees a chance for advancement but delays is passed over. Hesitation is not neutral. It sends a message. It tells the world that you do not trust yourself, that you are not ready, that you can be ignored. Decisiveness, however, tells the world that you are to be taken seriously, that your presence has weight, that you are a man who makes things happen. There is a certain ruthlessness in striking without hesitation, because it often offends those who move more slowly. They will call you reckless, arrogant, impatient, but secretly they will envy you. They will resent you for having the courage they lack. The man who hesitates spends his life watching bolder men pass him by, all while comforting himself with excuses about timing and caution. But excuses do not build empires. Action does. Even in personal conflict, the principle holds true. When disrespected, the hesitant man broods in silence, letting the insult grow larger in his mind until it consumes him. By the time he acts, it is too late. But the decisive man confronts the insult swiftly, with precision. He does not allow it to fester. He does not allow disrespect to take root. His decisive strike kills the problem at its birth. And so he maintains respect, because people know he will not wait, he will not hesitate, he will not allow even small slights to go unanswered. You must train yourself to see hesitation as weakness, not as wisdom. When the moment comes, strike. When the opportunity presents itself, seize it. When the insult is given, respond with authority. The world belongs to those who move while others stand frozen. The strongest version of you is not cautious to the point of paralysis. It is bold, swift, and unflinching in the face of risk. Morality is often presented as an unshakable foundation, a fixed code of right and wrong that should govern every decision. Men are told from childhood to follow rules, to honor principles, to stay loyal to ideals no matter the cost. But Machiavelli looked at the world with ruthless honesty and saw what others refuse to admit. Morality is not absolute. It bends. It changes with circumstance, with power, with survival. Those who chain themselves blindly to morality end up destroyed by those who understand that morality is a tool, not a prison. Think of the ruler who refuses to betray an ally even when that ally secretly plots against him. He prides himself on his loyalty, on his honor, on his commitment to virtue, but that very loyalty blinds him. While he hesitates to act because he does not want to stoop to treachery, his enemy gains strength, and when the betrayal finally comes, it is swift and merciless. His morality, so proudly defended, has become the weapon of his own downfall. Now think of the ruler who understands that loyalty must end when it threatens survival. He sees the betrayal forming and strikes first, not because it is moral, but because it is necessary. His people live, his throne remains secure, and history remembers him not for his virtue, but for his strength. In your own life, you have been taught to value honesty above all else, to always speak the truth, to always show your heart. But honesty without calculation is weakness. The man who reveals everything about himself will be manipulated by those who reveal nothing. The man who plays fair while others cheat will always be at a disadvantage. Machiavelli would tell you this: if you want to be strong, you must learn to bend morality to serve your power. Appear honest, but know when dishonesty protects you. Appear merciful, but know when cruelty is necessary. Appear faithful, but know when breaking faith secures your survival. The danger lies not in immorality itself, but in rigidity. Those who are rigid, who cling desperately to rules regardless of circumstance, break under pressure. They refuse to adapt, and so they fall. Those who bend, who understand that morality is fluid, can endure storms that crush others. This is why Machiavelli praised the fox as much as the lion. The lion represents brute force, but the fox represents cunning, the ability to adapt, to deceive when necessary, to shift appearances without losing control. Together, they form true power. Consider the man in business who refuses to cut ties with a failing partner because he values loyalty more than progress. His wealth crumbles alongside the partner's weakness. His virtue leaves him ruined. Now consider another man who projects loyalty but quietly steps away when the partnership becomes dangerous. He safeguards his future, even if others call him ruthless. Years later, he is stronger, richer, more secure. Which of these men does history admire? Which of these men survives? It is not the one who clung blindly to morality. It is the one who bent it to serve his rise. Even religion, which men hold as the highest form of morality, has been used by rulers as a tool. Machiavelli observed that appearing religious, even when one is not, gives a leader credibility. People want to believe their ruler is virtuous, so he gives them the appearance of virtue. But behind the mask, he does what is necessary, not what is holy. He bends morality without hesitation because he understands that survival and power matter more than purity. His people are pacified by his appearance, while his strength grows through his actions. In daily life, this lesson applies in the smallest ways. Imagine being asked a question in a room full of rivals. The moral man blurts the truth, exposing his plans, his weaknesses, his ambitions. The cunning man shapes his words carefully, revealing only what benefits him, bending truth into a weapon. His rivals are disarmed by his apparent openness, yet they learn nothing of value. This is morality bent to power, not destroyed, but reshaped. You must understand that morality, like law, like custom, is designed to control the masses. It is designed to keep ordinary men obedient, predictable, and harmless. If you aspire to rise above them, you cannot afford to be trapped by the very chains that keep them docile. You must appear moral enough to be trusted, but flexible enough to act outside morality when the situation demands it. If cruelty preserves order, use it. If deception secures survival, wield it. If betrayal ensures strength, embrace it. The world will condemn you in whispers, but respect you in silence. The strongest version of yourself is not bound by the illusions of morality, but guided by necessity. Machiavelli's wisdom is not an invitation to recklessness, but a reminder that power and survival demand adaptation. The man who bends morality shapes his own fate. The man who clings to it blindly is shaped by others. Power is never given freely, it is taken, shaped, and defended by those who dare to step outside the illusions of comfort and morality. Machiavelli did not write for the weak, nor for the ones satisfied with living in the shadows of others. He wrote for those who want to rise, for those who understand that survival is not about being loved, but about being unshakable, untouchable, and feared when necessary. Each rule you have just walked through is not a philosophy of cruelty. It is a manual for clarity. When you look around, you will see people destroyed, not because they lacked kindness, but because they lacked strategy. You will see men betrayed, not because they failed to love, but because they failed to guard. And you will see the powerful standing tall, not because they followed morality, but because they mastered appearances, learned to strike at the right time, and never allowed weakness to define them. The truth is simple in a world where others play games of deception. Those who cling blindly to virtue will always be pawns. But those who learn to wear the mask of virtue while moving with the precision of power become players, commanding the board, shaping outcomes, and writing their own destiny. That is the essence of Machiavelli's wisdom. Not cruelty for its own sake, but control. Not dishonor, but survival. Not chaos, but mastery. The world has not changed since his time. The faces are different, but the game is the same. And if you have listened closely, you now hold the keys to that game in your own hands.